A team with no guards beat a team with apparently no rebounding. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, making us part of your day, making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, which you should definitely go and subscribe to. That's the best way for you to support the show, is to help us out by subscribing on YouTube. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. My name is Matt Moore. I'm a senior NBA writer for the Action Network and the Nuggets insider for 104.3 The Fan in Denver. His name's Adam Mares. He's the director of content for DNVR, thednvr.com. And both of us, I think, had more rebounds last night than the Denver Nuggets. Okay, so the Nuggets lose last night in, I would say, this is my suggestion, Adam, that this was the most frustrating loss. Not the worst loss, but the most frustrating loss of the 2021-22 season.
I don't think so. Only because there's been some really frustrating ones. This one was frustrating because when you lose because of like turnovers or rebounding or effort or energy or those types of things, it can be extra frustrating. That's why Denver lost. But to me, my opinion, why they lost is maybe more interesting than some of the other losses they've had that have just been more about like effort or this or that. So, to me, this was a game that's like, okay, there's something to be learned from the Nuggets on this.
Okay, so what is the big takeaway for you that you can learn from this game?
I mean, well, part of this is, Denver was missing a lot of their length. I mean, Aaron Gordon, very important. Zeke Naji, very important. And basically replacing those guys in the rotation with Davon Reed in a 3-guard lineup. And you're going up against a team that just had great length, that was able to sort of put guys in tough spots. Will Barton, Davon Reed, Monte Morris, even Bones Highland, all of those guys found themselves in positions where their job was to push guys out of the paint that were significantly taller than them. Skinny guys. I mean, you look at a guy like Boucher, super skinny, a little bit of muscle. I think like he's way longer than an Aaron Gordon, but I think Aaron Gordon can push him around enough to keep him out of the paint. A Bones Highland, a Will Barton, and a Davon Reed, I think they give up the height, but they don't necessarily make up for it in any sort of like center of gravity or any of this stuff. So, that was one of the things that you took away from that game was Denver was not able to close the gap. I think they were going to get out rebounded. Like the way it played out, I think they were going to get out rebounded almost no matter what, given the circumstances, but not to the degree that they were.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought the decision to start Davon Reed was a good conceptual idea. I posited during the game to folks at the arena that perhaps I was like, I kind of wonder if you wanted to see what it looked like. Like, all right, what does Davon look like in these types of matchups? I thought the decision to put him on Siakam was bad. I don't know if like I would have said before the game, it's like definitely bad. But after a few matchups, I was like, ooh, I don't like this matchup for Davon.
It's important to note that Siakam destroyed Aaron Gordon in the first meeting. Not to the degree that he destroyed Davon Reed, but that even Aaron Gordon struggled with that, and the Nuggets as a team struggled with Siakam the first time around. In this one, it was a total domination. I mean, Siakam got whatever he wanted. But this is one of my takeaways. I mean, I'm a big Davon Reed guy. I think just a week ago we were talking about him and the future with the Nuggets. I think this last 4 or 5 games, whatever it's been that he's been in the rotation, one of the things it's shown us is he really doesn't make an impact on some of the top wings. Like we think about, oh, he's a wing defender. What can you do with him? On some of the top wings over these last few games, he hasn't really had a strong impact. And even the bigger size forwards like a Trey Lyles and obviously a Pascal Siakam, he kind of looks no different than a Bones Highland does, which is to say just gets like out-muscled, outsized, and outclassed.
Yeah, it was rough. I do want to say, especially, like I had the bet stream for Suns Raptors on Friday. So I watched the Raptors in their back-to-back games, first on the bet stream and then in the arena at Ball. And I was just really impressed with their performance and their effort, and the pressure that they put on the ball handlers completely swallowed up the Nuggets. The problems of getting, Jokic the ball were in part because he wasn't in the game soon enough. And then Also because Will Barton and to a lesser degree, I think Monte Morris, mostly Will Barton, just couldn't handle the pressure that those long athletic guys put on them. And the idea is like, well, what's he going to do in the playoffs? And I would say like, look, not every team will honestly be able to press you the way that the Raptors can. Like they have a unique skill set, so it won't always be that bad. But yeah, if he runs into that, like you've been saying this, that length bothers the Nuggets, that these super long teams, and that's part of it is they don't have a guy with like flat out speed who's just going to zip around anybody. Like they don't have anybody. Like they don't have like I don't know who the fastest guard on the team is. Facu maybe. Like they just don't
Maybe
have.
probably Bones, and I think it's noteworthy that Bones had a very good game yesterday. Like he was one of the guys that the personality of the game sort of lend itself to his skill.
And so like they couldn't really beat any of that. Bones was fantastic last night. He was like he and Jokic were the upsides. I thought Monte was great in the first half, and then the Raptors I thought did a good job of getting the ball away from him, and then also just had the ball too much, especially after he got going in the third quarter. He wanted to come back in and try and give them something, and he was bad. And we'll talk about that in the second segment. Do you think Aaron Gordon makes the difference last night?
It's hard because Aaron Gordon, I think over the last like several weeks hasn't been himself. And I think we're starting to realize that probably has to do with both fatigue and maybe some lingering little bumps and bruises along the way. So I don't know, like the version of Aaron Gordon that you got in that Warriors game probably doesn't, other than in this one way. It became very clear at halftime that rebounding was going to be like, hey, if you get some rebounds or you prevent them more accurately, if you prevent them from getting offensive rebounds, you're going to win the game. And in the second half, they still didn't do that. And I think Aaron Gordon, he's been hobbled in terms of like driving to the basket and doing this, but I think he would put a body on a guy and just say like, yeah, you're not grabbing this one this time. So yes, but it's hard to know just because of how banged up he's appeared the last few weeks.
It's also interesting in that a lot of the focus is on like Joker and the offense and like why didn't they call Jokic and all these things, and I'm like they scored 115. I haven't checked the per minute stats. I feel like I would not say it was a great offensive night. I would say I thought inside like first half I thought they played great offensively in terms of attacking the rim.
It's that fourth quarter 16 points that sticks out. It's the fourth quarter offense. But yes, you're right. On the whole, Denver scored the ball this game.
Yeah, and so I think if we look at overall, like the problem was defense. It was like Scotty Barnes and Siakam in particular. Gary Trent got going a little bit in the second half versus a team with no guards. I think you got to be able to disrupt them a little bit more than that, and they just didn't like nobody. And this is why Malone called them. I will say this: Malone was careful about they're saying we are a soft team and saying we played soft. And like I do find a distinction between the two personally. That was kind of the thing that he kind of wanted to say was like we didn't make contact with anybody.
Which one did he say?
He said that they played soft.
Okay, so that's the better of the two. I never care for like look. First of all, he's right. Like Denver needed rebounding is a thing, especially when you're talking about a guy like Boucher. This isn't Dwight Howard, who's like a physical specimen that nobody in the world can match up with. We're talking about Boucher, who's very long, very good, but if you do the work, you can move him out of the offensive rebounding position, and Denver didn't do that. So I agree with him that Denver played like a team that wasn't motivated enough to win. Like they could have won that game with just like, hey, throw out the book, just let's outwork them in the second half. They could have won that one. But I always get annoyed by just the like this team is soft or whatever. To me, I'm always like, all right, we got to find more concrete ways. But Michael Malone, the one thing we can't really criticize him on is he seems to have a pulse on the team from that standpoint. So even if I don't like it, he usually knows what he's doing there.
How dare you say something nice about Michael Malone today? I think I'll say that this. I made a point. It was the last question of the presser, and I made a point to say the last two games, Jokic got in later than he has been, and I asked if that was a purposeful change in the rotation. I think there are two interpretations of the answer. Malone said, "I'm trying not to run him into the ground late in the season." He also said, when we give up that 15-3 run, I should have learned by now that I just got to call timeout and get him back.
Yeah. Yep.
I will genuinely say that part of me thinks that he honestly, it kind of got away from him and he just like didn't want to burn the timeout to take it, to get him back in. And I think he knows that was a mistake. I was frustrated last night because people wanted to say like, well, somebody asked Malone why Jokic didn't go back in. So I asked the question and he answers it and he admits that he probably should have gotten him back in sooner. and then they kill him for that too. It's like, okay, guys,
Yeah.
like, I get it.
I mean, the one thing I'll say is I agree with you that I think it got away from him, but that's to me is a little that's a little frustrating. Again, all the stuff like taking it with a grain of salt in the broader perspective. But here's the thing. We talk about Jokic giving a take foul and like, hey, stopping a fast break is not worth you being in foul trouble. Like that is I think Michael Malone has to look at his timeouts the same way. If like he was smart to think I need 2 timeouts, close game is going to come down the wire. I need to save timeouts. But 2 extra minutes of Jokic on the bench is worth it. 2 timeouts, not 1.
Yeah.
And so you're right. I think that was his reasoning, but
I think
it was very clear to me watching that fourth quarter unfold that this was not going to just like rebound in the other direction.
Yeah, and I think he knows that, and I think he's frustrated that I understand it from his perspective, where he's like, we can't make it because the bench is like playing. This is one of the problems, right? It's like the bench will play well, and it's like, okay, things are going pretty well, and then all of a sudden it's just like, blah, like 3 minutes where everything good that they've done gets completely erased, and like there's a little bit of like, you can't make it. You almost have to like, as soon as the momentum even seems to turn, like if they get a fast break bucket or if they get a 3-pointer, like immediately you have to, like if they get 2 buckets in a row, you have to get like, then be like, all right, I gotta get Jokic back in,
You know what the play was, Matt, was that fast break DeMarcus Cousins layup that missed the rim that just hit hard off the backboard, because I think that was like a 5-point game that would have put it up 7. You go the other way and either cut it to 3 or 2. And it was just such a huge momentum play. And it kind of unraveled from there. And sometimes it's as simple as those types of things. I will say like that second unit has been in a little bit of a funk lately, and I'm a little concerned about it in that perspective. And also DeMarcus Cousins, I think, has personally been in a little bit of a like his impact has not been positive over the last few games.
The moping was at an all-time level last night, just Eoring it up and down the court all over. The effort level was really bad, and just running back down on layups. I was just tell you, you can't, if you're DeMarcus Cousins, you can't fall down on a layup attempt, because it's going to take you so long to get up and get back down the floor. That's a 4-on-5. You can't do it.
It is a 4-on-5, yeah.
You just can't. I guess the only other thing I've got, Bones was great last night, and the bench was bad. I thought Austin was okay. Like Austin had 1 really bad air ball, but 2 threes, and I thought Austin,
I thought Austin was fine. The
rebound.
I'd have to go back. I will rewatch this game because I think it's so important. But I'll have to go back and see, because a lot of the rebounding was the wing players. Like Toronto, this is the thing with them this year, is they actually are rebounding in a unique way, offensive rebounding. And I want to go back and just see like where were they? I know Bryn Forbes there and Bones. There was a few times where it's like, hey, it's a guard. It's your guy that is actually grabbing this rebound. So I need to go back and see that with Austin Rivers, how involved he was in some of those.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is Malone, one of the reasons he was so frustrated with this game is because it was uncharacteristic for them. They didn't he hates 2 things: getting beat by the same things over and over, that's the turnovers, and getting beat by things that you normally do really well, and that's rebounding. The number 1 defensive rebounding percentage team in the league. Like, this is not a consistent thing. This was a one-night occurrence that happened versus a very specific opponent. And I'm not saying that you can slough it off. I think this was a really bad loss. But if you want to know like why it happened, one of the reasons is because they didn't do the thing that they've done great all season long. And that is where I do wonder about Aaron Gordon. Let's take a break. We'll come back, and it's time to talk about Will Barton. We're going to do the Will Barton segment, and we'll just get into all that and satisfy what people want. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, yes, it's time for Built Bar. So you like marshmallows, right? Like, who doesn't like a marshmallow? Now imagine a protein-infused marshmallow. That's what Built Bar's got, and they're covered in 100% chocolate. They're called the Puffs, and they got great flavors like cinnamony churro and coconut marshmallow. The coconut one's really good. Banana cream pie. They're all really great, and they're all covered in 100% real chocolate, just like all of the Built Bars. Built Bars are low calorie and high protein. Most Built Bars contain just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which has got around 240 calories and 30 grams of sugar. You just can't beat a Built Bar for a nutritious, healthy snack for you. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and new this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. There's so many, and they're always adding more. Check them out at built.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for making this part of your day and getting your week started off with us as we relay a pretty frustrating and bad loss of the Nuggets to the Toronto Raptors. Okay, So this is my view. Ryan Blackburn kind of shared this last night and with me, and I thought it was really on point. So I want to talk about it with you. I think the fan base as a whole is over Will Barton. That is my take.
It's hard to say. Like the fan base is the people online, which yes, I would agree with that. But that makes up such a small representation of it. It's like, we both get this at our respective outlets and in our social lives, like our social media lives. Most of what we get is positive things. The negative stuff sticks out so much because it's the loudest and most effusive, and so I think it can paint things. But
I would say the
Will Barton,
entire
there's no
country
question that Will Barton has surpassed Campazzo as the scapegoat for this season.
I would say the entire country of Serbia is done with Will Barton, as well as the country of Argentina. He's just like wiping out countries left and right. Will Barton is.
But again, like I just watched Serbian Corner with Voya and Miroslav, two very reasonable, pragmatic people, and they have slightly different perspectives on it. So to me, I don't know. The loudest voices are usually the most polarizing.
So let's go here, because this has been floated more than one time. Is it time for Will Barton to come off the bench?
Now, here, I actually think, well, here's the thing. Is it time? No, because the Nuggets don't have anybody. Like, the Nuggets are so short-handed.
Well,
like,
they start Rivers. What if they just sub out Rivers and bring Barton off the bench?
No, right now, no. I don't think that's the case. But I will say that this is a thing that this year, I've been on the Barton as a starter for several years, and I think it's been warranted. I worry about his durability, for one. And I just think Jokic over these last two seasons has reached this level offensively where maybe the way you build around him now is slightly different than it was 2 years ago. And in that way, I've said this all along. I think Murray and Jokic are good enough offensively that you're there. Now you just focus on how do the other pieces fit. And Will Barton's very good. He's better than an Austin Rivers, but I wonder if what you actually need is a defensive guard there, more in line with a Rivers. So to me, is it time? Whenever everybody's back, like next year especially, I think probably. I think there is probably somebody else you go there, and that's not because he's not good. He'll have a lot of value scoring even more off of a second unit.
I think depending on the matchup, and like there's just like a lot of different ways this matchup can go. Let's say it's Grizzlies. Let's say it's 3-6 Grizzlies. If they're switching, which I don't know that they will, but if they're switching, especially in a 1-2 pick and roll, because the Grizzlies do run that a fair amount. They run.
They run guard to guard action. Every team will try to switch to get their most favorable defender, and Denver will
the Grizzlies. Too. I was actually just looking at this. I'm doing a deep dive on Memphis right now, and so like they do it more than I think even a lot of the teams I've looked at do. They run a lot of Ja and Bane. Like his three top screeners are Adams, obviously by a huge margin, Brandon Clark, and then Desmond.
But in the playoffs, man, I don't think it matters because, like, if you remember in the bubble against Utah, they ran that to get Michael Porter in the pick and roll every time. It wasn't what they did all season. It's just in the playoffs, you're like, here's what we do. Here's what the other team can't stop.
Sure. So that's what I'm saying is if you get through this postseason and they're hunting Will, then that's the point where I will be fully on board with the idea that the Nuggets are going to have to get an upgrade at 2 guard. I think I've held out just because, like, look, it's 5 games. I get it. I do. I do look back at the 5 games as proof of concept. Like it worked.
5 games?
But the interim between trading for Aaron and
I see. I see that one. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, the proof was in that very small sample size pudding that 5-man unit was pretty undeniable.
And look, if you go back and you listen to the shows from November when he was playing 35 minutes a night and having to log like some 40-minute games, I was talking then. I was like, this is going to cost them later on. And you could say like that you could say that you need your 2 guard to be able to play these minutes. And maybe that's like, that may honestly, because you've said this before about like, look, if he just can't stay healthy for the playoffs, he can't stay healthy for the playoffs. And this is a little bit different, right? Where he's still playing. He hasn't sustained a major injury. Yeah. But that to me is like part of this is if you told me going into the year, hey, there's going to be a stretch of injuries where Will Barton's going to have to play like a stretch of games in November where he's logging 37 to 40 minutes a night, I'm going to be like, I would have said then, like, Will's not going to play well in March. Like, that's just he can't handle that kind of load. He just can't. The body, he wants to. I think that the team wants him to. All of these things. it's just when I watch him, it is very much a physically struggling to move enough. Like it is like I don't even know that on defense, like he got beat on a back cut last night. That was just like attention to detail, and you're gonna get some of that with Will, right? Like this would be I'll say that maybe that's a better way to put it. If Will's defensive floor was higher, then the fatigue wouldn't be as much of a factor. And if the fatigue wasn't much of a factor, then Will's low defensive floor wouldn't be as much of an issue. But it's a combination of he has a low defensive floor and he seems extremely fatigued at this point in the season.
I don't even the tough part is that this point in the season part, because I just pulled up his numbers while we were talking here since December 1st. So we take because he had a great November. You're right about that, and he was second best player clearly through the first like 5 weeks of the season, and he was playing really, really well. Since December 1st, he's shooting 43% from the field, which is the worst. It's the 14th best mark on the Nuggets. You know, all basically of all rotation players, it's the worst mark, and that's a large sample size, and it kind of matches the eye test of he kind of hit this wall early this year. Not usually it's like January, February, or somewhere in there, but hit it a little bit earlier, and that's the part of me that I just kind of worry about. Like, not every player ages gracefully. You know, not every player does. We're kind of tainted, I think, in this Chris Paul, LeBron era where these super, athletes and some of your best players last this long. But sometimes guys hit a meaningful block where it's like, okay. And last night was a big part of this because the thing Denver had to do, in my opinion, the thing they had to do to offensively in the fourth to sort of break this was they had to have guys that could attack that soft closeout, the packing the paint and then run them off the line. And Will he struggled. Like he was getting blocked. He was getting stripped. And that's the part of his game that has been really dynamic that I'm just worried is not quite where it was.
So I bring this up only, you're right. I bring this up only because like I was looking at this very specifically last night. I looked at his month by month splits. So you took since December 1st, right?
I just did that randomly.
I get it. So here's what I looked at. I looked at it like month by month, and he had a really terrible December and a really terrible March. And so I looked at it, I was like, I just looked this up just now. From January 1st to March 1st, Will was at 46% from the field and 36% from three, which is totally fine. Like, it's not great. It's totally fine. Like, I don't think you can look at 46-36 splits and give him a failing grade. Is that fair?
Yeah, 46 still a little bit low, but all right, 46, 36. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so like this is the thing, right? Is like I keep saying like he's inconsistent. He has a good month and then a bad month and a good month and then a bad month, and it feels. I'll agree. Like that's why I was surprised when I looked at his February numbers. I expected his February numbers to look really bad, and they were actually pretty decent, which was like that was genuinely surprising to me because that's not how it's felt. And then you get into the question of okay, what matters, how it feels, or what it was, and I don't know the answer. Like that is not an easy answer, easy one to kind of figure out and decipher. It really isn't. Since in that stretch of time, he had like here's a good comparison though. Even in that stretch, right in January, he had one of the worst EFGs on the team. Like Austin shot better than him, Jeff Green shot better than him, Aaron shot better than him, Monte shot better than him. It was comparable, but like the only players in the rotation worse than him were Bones, DeMarcus, and Campazzo. So like I said, it's inconsistent. And when I say the fans are just kind of over him, it just seems like they want a more consistent option. And it can be on either end, whether it's offense or defense. It seems like people want either Will's going to have to play better defense or he's going to have to be able to shoot better. But this combination of poor defense and inconsistent shooting is not getting it done.
Yeah, the value of Will to me is that he's dynamic. He can do so many things. He can handle. He can shoot. He's got the length to defend. He can pass. Like there's just a lot of things he can do. And right now they need him to be great at it. I think it would almost benefit the Nuggets more for him to be great at one or two things rather than a jack of all trades guy. That changes though once you get Murray, Porter back. Like then you kind of need a jack of all trades type. I think you need defense more than anything, but you also it'll be really valuable for Will Barton to be attacking scrambled defenses or running secondary pick and rolls against the worst defender on the court. Like he'll start to shine under those moments for sure.
I think it's funny because in the comments, there's criticisms both that he never is willing to put his body on the line. And then another one, which
that's not a fair quote. That's not a fair comment.
And then another one that says, look where Barton is standing and moving on defense. I did. He never guards his man. He always needs to get a rebound. So he's always going for rebounds, but he never puts his body on the line. It's a fascinating combination. Look,
I think that of all the things you can question Will about, like he's a hyper competitor. He loves the team. Like you might not like his decision making or whatever, but to me, like he's definitely put his body on the line in his tenure in Denver.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the big matchup on Monday and whether or not the Nuggets can get it together to get what would be arguably maybe not the biggest win of the season, but one of. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, let's talk about Bet Online because Bet Online is the place you need to go as college basketball tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. They remain the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. Not just basketball. They've got you covered for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online, where the game starts. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making Locked On Nuggets your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA with Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Final segment here with Adam Mares for Monday. Adam, I don't know if you know this, but on Monday, the Denver Nuggets will play a basketball game in Philadelphia, and some are saying it has considerable ramifications.
Man, I'm nervous for this one. Here's what I will say. I think you're going to, I'm curious because I think you might undersell it. I honestly believe the MVP is a narrative driven award. It just is. I think people try very hard to put context to it. And some people try very hard to put proper context in it. But the narrative part of it swallows this up. I think the MVP gets decided tomorrow night.
I think it's fair.
Fair or not? I think it just. Yep. I just think that's how it works.
No, I think that's. Sorry. What I mean is that is a really sound take. I have said the same. I don't think that's how it should work. I always say that you just don't this is not how it works in the course of an 82 game season. You don't boil it down to how you do head to head. Like it could be a weird matchup. Like you could have an off night. Like if Embiid shoots 3 of 17 tomorrow, I'll be like, well, clearly Joel Embiid doesn't deserve the MVP. No, this is not what I'm going to do. You know,
but also like Denver's going to be bringing the same team we just saw against Toronto. It looks like Aaron Gordon is questionable again. Zeke Naji is questionable. Like Denver's going to be really thin again, like in the wing and front court positions. And by the way, James Harden, he's like a good Siakam.
Yeah,
just in terms of like, is Denver going to be able to stay in front of him? And who are they going to? Is Davon Reed going to get the James Harden assignment?
Oh, I don't mind that one as much actually. Don't mind that one. That one I don't hate. I like that one better than Siakam. I'll say this because like Siakam was so much bigger than him. Yeah, and like look, my prediction for this game is that Joel Embiid goes for not 40, 42. That is my count. I think he goes for exactly 42 points. He gets a huge number of throws, which frustrate Nuggets fans. I think Jokic probably trouble. I think the Sixers probably win this game by double digits. We were talking about it the other night after the Warriors game when they were 4 or 5. They went 4 or 5, and then last night I was like, on Saturday they've got a 5 and 7. Well, guess what? On Monday they've got a 7th game in 9 days. Like the schedule doesn't just like write itself; it just absolutely happens. So yeah, I don't know. Like Embiid has ducked this matchup. Not ducked. Sorry, Embiid has been hurt so many times for this matchup.
The last time they played, I think, was the Jokic game winner back in 2019. That was so long ago. I was at the game. That's how long ago it was. Like there was a crowd. Everybody erupted.
So this matchup been so long, so I don't know like kind of what to expect. But I know how Embiid's been playing lately, and I know how motivated Embiid is. I do want to say, and I sent this to you, Adam. Embiid had some really great comments the other day about Jokic. Like he had some really high level praise for Jokic and what he's done for the game and everything. Like we've talked about this before. Like everyone respects Jokic now, except for like Nick Wright. Like everyone else like respects Jokic.
Totally,
he's gotten the credit that he deserves. Like Nick Nurse, I honestly do not have a comp for him. Like they were like, "Is there anybody in your experience?" And he was like, "Honestly, no." And you have loved this comment from Nurse because he said, his size, his skill, his efficiency, his IQ, and he said, and also his competitive spirit. Like he talked about that side of Jokic. So, I do think that maybe Jokic's MVP bid ends tomorrow. If they get the win, I think it does go a long way, maybe more than it should. Either way, this is going to be like a massive decider for MVP. And honestly, part of me is like, this isn't fair unless you get Giannis to come in through the side door and he gets to play too, because Giannis has been freaking amazing as well.
I'll tell you what, but the narrative is so far against Giannis for some reason. Like we're also focused on the Jokic part of the narrative, but the narrative is against Giannis too, who's like, for some reason, this like third wheel that, to your point, seems to not be able to do anything to break into the conversation. So I don't know. I do think it'll come to the. Here's the other aspect of this, though, Matt, and I'm curious what you think. We're going to go full psychologist here, so this is going to be the grossest part. But part of me wonders, like, the stuff with Jamal Murray just doesn't seem that encouraging. And I wonder if the team is more skeptical, including the players are more skeptical of his return than anything. And I wonder how much Yoke really wants this award if he knows he's not getting Jamal Murray back. Like, do you want to be it's almost reminiscent of Dirk winning the award and then being bounced in the first round. And it became like this, like, scarlet letter, really, I guess, or this like mark against him where it's like, hey, this is actually a bad thing. And I just wonder if Yoke's looking at this and going like, is this I'm going to have to go out and play on the road in a playoff series against Golden State and win my award in like game 4 when we might be getting swept or losing really badly. So part of me wonders that Jokic's own personal motivation for going out and making a statement game tomorrow.
I look at it a little bit differently. I don't think that he looks at it and goes like, I don't want to deal with like that, because I don't think he pays attention to any of it. I think he really is like, I would rather not win MVP because I don't want to have to do another press conference. I don't want to have to do all the media stuff. I just don't want to do it. I don't care about it. I think Embiid cares about it. I don't think Jokic does. I think if he wins it, he'll be like, oh, that's cool. But he'll also, be more focused on winning in the playoffs. And I'll say this, I think Embiid's the same. I think Embiid wants to win a championship. Like he knows what winning a championship does for him. And so I think for sure, if you're a Nuggets fan, you don't think that Jamal's coming back, which we've talked about how it's getting more and more skeptical by the day. Mike Singer had a report the other day that's 50-50, which that sounds like 50-50 is optimistic to me at this point. It just sounds like
it's almost like you take 20% off of any type of percentage a team gives you. Like,
yeah,
if they say 50-50, they really mean 40-60.
And so, yeah, I think that is probably where we're at. And I think honestly, I'll say this, like everyone, it's fair to ask me why I thought he was coming back in February. I think he was genuinely on track until mid-January. And then I think there was a health and safety protocols bit. And I think after that, he has not been in the place that he wanted to be. I want to just stress this to the utmost. Like Jamal should not come back until he feels like he's ready. He just should not come back until he feels like he's ready. But I also say this, if you're Joker, it is, I would not blame him for cycling back a little bit. Like, I think at some point you do have to be realistic about what the team ceiling is, and I like their matchups in a lot of these potential playoff matchups. Like I still look at them conceptually and go, I think they can win this even shorthanded because of how they play when they are not whole, but more whole than not, when at least they have the other intended starters. And especially I think they get MPJ back and maybe that's a lift. Like maybe that's enough. I don't think that they're dead in the water, but I do think it's reasonable to be like, I think there is an emotional drain to recognizing that your chances are not what you feel that they need to be going in.
Right. And that's the whole thing. I mean, I think they knew this last year and they still competed. So this is not they're going to fold. It's just can these things sometimes turn into a negative if you're getting too much attention? Here's the thing I'll say. Yoke cares about the MVP significantly less than his fans do.
Yeah.
Significantly less.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see how it comes out.
What's your prediction for the game though?
Sixers win by 17. Embiid scores 42. Frustrating night for Nuggets fans.
I agree. I don't know about the Embiid part. Harden and Embiid both. I think just like who's gonna Denver not having even their bigs, they're just wing guys is gonna make this even harder. Yeah, I think I agree. I think Denver loses pretty comfortably.
Look, I'll also say this. I think the over. I like the over in this game. The Sixers defense has not been great. Since the trade, it is not very good.
Here's the other thing. Like Denver's reeling because they just lost 2 in a row, but Philly is reeling from a street cred standpoint. Like that loss to the Nets was a big oh, you guys are phonies. And this is a chance for them to like bounce back the narrative a little bit and like, hey, we can step up in nationally televised big games. So I just think they might have a little bit of extra motivation on it. So we'll see.
Okay, we'll recap it no matter what here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Make sure to have yourselves a great week. For Adam Mares, I'm Matt Moore. Thanks for joining us. We'll